Hello everybody. This is Alyssa from Arts and Crafts, and today we are here for our Christmas premiere. And today's Christmas premiere, in case you're wondering what all of this mess of everything is, I am going to be doing a Chinese brush painting for you guys. I gotta lift my table up. So if you hear a weird noise, we're going for a little ride. All right, so today's Christmas premiere, what I'm doing for you guys, we are going to go ahead and we are going to actually paint a Christmas cactus. So, in case you guys didn't know and haven't watched the two previous Christmas premieres that I did, sorry, I'm laughing at sushi. I did a brush painting for you, both of the previous ones, so I'm going to do the same thing again. So first off, I just kind of thought it'd be interesting so you guys could see what it looks like for the paints. So Chinese brush painting is a painting style that has been around for thousands of years. And you cannot come up here, Sushi. We're not coming on my desk. Not when I'm painting, Brat Child. So it's been around for thousands of years, and we're not going to go like super into the details of it. But I thought it'd be kind of interesting to give you guys a glimpse because it won't take super long to paint the Christmas cactus itself. But I thought it'd be interesting to see, okay, this is how we have for the paints. So for the paints, I use a combination of Chinese watercolors, which are going to be like this. I use the Marie's, which are actually one of the cheapest Chinese watercolors that you can get. They come in these tubes. And then I use a combination of those, and there's a couple of them, like my reds are kind of mixed with some Winsor Newton red tones as well. What I tend to do is I actually need to replenish my reds soon. I'll squirt like the entire tube of color. Sushi, you are not coming up here. Get down. You can't be up here. So I will squirt the entire tube of color into these little white ceramic, dishes and work from there. So and then it's one of those things that when I'm in between painting sessions, you can stay on the window ledge, but you're not coming down, Carcass. So in case you're not familiar, Sushi and Mochi are my cats. Mochi is currently laying on the heating pad. They're Devon Rexes, so they're ridiculously adorable. Mochi's laying over on her heating pad, and Sushi, the chaos monger, is chilling on the windowsill right there. So anyways, as I was saying, I squirt all of the color in there for like the reds. This isn't just a straight, like this green is a combination of that yellow and indigo, which is more of like a blue tone. That's what you mix together to make the dark green. And then you mix this with some of the yellow to make the light green. And then I just leave it in these, with the colored inks and the color paint like this, you can leave it in these little tubes or these little tubs like this. Like this has probably been going for, I keep adding more color to it, but like the crustiness around the edges has probably been there for like 4 years or so. I don't really go through and, change it or anything like that. I leave it as is. And then when I need to add more, I just add more to it. That's kind of like the way that I tend to do it. And then the reds are a combination of a couple colors as well. We have a light red, a medium red, and a dark red. So this is our colors, and then you just have to add water to basically melt the adhesive or the glue that comes in the color. So you add water and then you kind of mix it up, and that like reactivates or re-energizes your paint. So there's our light, and with the reds, it doesn't matter if you kind of mix the colors a little bit. It's usually pretty fine. I do need to add a little bit more dark into here. My reds have been going for quite a hot minute. But anyways, we are going to be painting a Christmas cactus. So I'm going to go through that for you guys now that I'm getting my colors all mixed up and ready to go. A lot of times I'll add a little to make this darker. I'll even add when it's on my plate or on my brush and then into the plate for final mixing. I'll actually add a little bit of ink, because that's one of the other things that you'll see here is I already poured the ink in. So the ink is actually right here is my ink. So I put a little ink in the corner right there. And as you can see, I really don't bother with like super cleaning my stuff in between times. I am going to move that out of the way, and then we're going to come right here. And with the red, I got to make sure I get all the red off, because that's one of the things that I use this brush to stir into, or to pull out like white paint. So I also have 2 cups of water. Over here, I have one that I use for the initial wash, and then the second cup of water is used for the final rinse. So now we've got our colors ready. This is what I use as my mixing plate. And then over here are the brushes that I use. I have so many brushes, but these are probably the brushes that I have used more than any other brush. This one is the one that I tend to use for details, and for any kind of like signing of anything, I use this brush. This one is great for like mountains, crags. This is called a mountain horse brush. It's great for like those mountains and rough spots, and like branches and things like that. This is a orchid bamboo brush. It's actually a large orchid bamboo brush. This one is excellent for painting like tree trunks and stumps, and then also for like bamboo, like the bamboo leaves, and then orchids as well, because they have these long flowy leaves. That's what this one is the best for. And then here we have probably one of the more common ones. So this is the flow brush. It's what's called a combination brush because it's got two different types of hair in here. It's got the sheep hair, which is the white stuff, and then the dark, which is like the weasel, goat, whatever. There's a combination. You'll see different ones made with different things. But this is one of those things that they actually do use animal hair for the brushes, because a synthetic brush just doesn't give you the same quality. And I've had these brushes for a hot minute. And so a lot of these brushes I've had, I think since like, so some of these I've had since like 2020, at least like 5 years. This one I've had longer than that. I've had, yeah, some of them had a very long time. So this is a flow, this is a medium flow, so it's a little bit larger than that. And then this is a large flow, and you can see it's what we call a combo brush because it's got those two color tones in there. This is not a combo brush, that's just the dark. And then I do have some that are just the lighter, the sheep hair, light colored ones, but I don't really use those ones nearly as much. So I think most of what we're going to do with our painting today, I will probably end up using my flow and my flow and maybe the large flow, kind of a combination of the two of those. So we're going to kind of unroll. Today I decided to do this, instead of using it on just regular paper, I decided to use a scroll for this, because scrolls can be very pretty to work with, and then it's already finished and you don't have to worry about how you want to finish it. So we're going to use this scroll. It's got like this lovely purple color. But to hold the scroll open, I'm going to use these. These are metal paperweights. I also use my brush painting paperweights on my easel. I have some different style paperweights, but they're for brush paintings as well. I use those on my easel for my diamond paintings as well. So in case you wondered where all those, if you've ever seen them in my videos, it's because I use them for my paintings. So let's see, what are we looking at time-wise? Because I should probably see about keeping track of that time so I can cut this down as needed, because now we're about to get into it. And I'm actually standing at my desk right now. So we're going to set a timer for 50 minutes. All right, so I've got a timer set, so now we can kind of break into it. So like I said, I'm going to be doing a Christmas cactus. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. I always end up with like paint on me in some way, shape, or form when I touch things. So that's one of the hazards. I always make a mess when I'm painting. So the interesting, so the brush painting stuff like this, it is water soluble. So it's something that I can clean the paint off with. It's watercolor, so it's water soluble. And look, I got the paint off of my hand just like that. So anyways, we are going to make sure I don't have any other paint on me so I don't get it on this. And we're going to try to come up with what we're doing. I did paint a like Christmas cactus, poinsettia, red passion flower, and plum blossom all together in one painting for my painting class. So I'm going to kind of take the Christmas cactus that I had painted from there and do where it's kind of like, I'm going to have it where it's kind of like coming from off and then have it kind of swooping around. We are going to use a small flow because this is not very big. So we are going to use this little guy here. So I'm going to hydrate my brush and we're going to get started with this. So you guys can see what it looks like. And it's going to be a combination of green with red mostly is what we're going to do for this. So my brush is nice and wet. So now I want the light green, and then I'm going to pop it right in here, and a little bit of dark red. Mix that a little bit more, so I can get, basically get the coloration that I want. The first few might have a little bit more red to them. And then I always do this to kind of get some of the extra hydration off. This is always the first stroke or two that I do is always where I'm like, ooh, how's it going to go? Because that's what I want this to do is I want to have like multiple like long fronds coming down, but then I also have to be able to give myself room to paint the flower. So that's one of the things as well. We have to be able to paint the flower, which realistically I should probably start with the flower, but I don't know where I want the flowers to be. Let me think about that for a minute. Where do I want the flowers on here? Because I'm going to go, I want to have one that's kind of coming down to there, and then maybe a flower here, and maybe a smaller one. I'll probably paint like 2 of them. So we'll do one that's curling around like this, and then we'll have a flower, maybe a flower down here, and then another one that's going to come from similar branch from there and curl down and do a flower. So that one's going to be short with a flower like right there. So let me go ahead and see. Ooh, this is the intimidating part, is that first stroke, because then you're just like, which way do I do it? Which way do I do it? So that's always a little bit more intimidating, doing your first stroke or two. So let me, I do have a photo of what I painted for my class earlier in front of me, just to kind of like get the feel and the idea for how I want this to be. So I think I'm gonna at least do like the first one of these. So we're gonna go ahead and do our first little stem thing. So we're gonna come there, and then we're gonna come out and go that way, and then that way, and then we're gonna do 2 more. Boom, boom. So that's gonna be our first little frond, as you can see. So you've got that combination of the green and red. It's going to do different things. This is going to be a paper that's already mounted, so it's going to have a different kind of effect than if I was painting on an unmounted paper. So we're going to kind of bring that down a little bit, and then as I get closer to where I want the flowers to be, I think I will do it backwards from how my teacher would have me do it. She always wants me to do like the flowers first, but I think I'm going to do a little backwards today. So we're going to come into here, make our, this is going to be the detailing. This one, like I said, this is not going to take a super long time. Let me go ahead and rehydrate my brush, add more color. So that's kind of one of those things where a lot of times you even just do like a single stroke and then you add color. So it's very, you do a single section, like you paint one of these segments, and then you would add more color, more paint to your brush to kind of do it as we go. So we're going to kind of come right there. And you're going to notice that the color will change depending on what color I put on here, because it's going to be very different every time we do it. And we want this to kind of come down and around. So we're going to angle it a little bit more as we go. But I think this is, and we will add more branches off of it. We're not going to have just like a solid branch. There's going to be little segments that veer off of here, which will add a little bit more interest. But I don't know if anybody else has Christmas cactus around. I personally don't, but my mom actually has a bunch of, she's got like 2, like a Thanksgiving cactus and Easter cactus. They're all very similar. It just depends on how the fronds or like the specific shape of their, you can have different degrees of shape of the segments. With them, my mom has a couple of them. One of them used to be her sister's. So before she lost one of her sisters, well, actually, growing up, my aunt always had one of those cactuses sitting in like her living room for as long as I can remember. So that's something that my mom, when my aunt died, ended up taking the cactus. She decided to take the cactus. You really shouldn't be going back over the stroke because you can see all of the strokes. Brush painting is one of those things that is very not forgiving. So if you make a mistake, it is what it is. You can call it a happy accident like Bob Ross would, but it is what it is. There is no like going back over and redoing things like in a regular watercolor on watercolor paper, like Western watercolor. You can actually find yourself, if you make a mistake, it's watercolor, you can actually add more water to it, wash it out, and kind of mix it up a little bit. You can't do that with brush painting. That definitely does not work. I'm going to do one more to kind of curl it this way, and then I think I may leave it for the flower segment as we do this. And then I'm going to have another one kind of coming from here, coming down, a little bit more of a shallow swoop like this, I think is how I want that one to be. So actually I'm going to curl this one a little bit in so that way we have a little bit of an angle for it and go from there. So anyways, as I was saying, my aunt always had these cactuses, and then also my grandma. So my mom ended up getting like the cactus from my aunt, repotted it, like rejuvenated it because it was in some pretty sorry shape. and it's like blooming beautifully and looking fantastic. And then she has another one that a friend had given her as well. My grandma on the other side of my family, on my dad's side, my grandma always had this massive, it was like, that thing was massive. It was probably the size of my entire desk. This huge, massive one for like as long as I can remember. And then all of a sudden, I feel like there was a period where it was like, we just never saw it again. And I have no clue what happened to it because it was an old, massive, ancient cactus. And it's one of those things, it's always so nice, especially in Michigan, to be able to have those accents of color in like the Christmas time frame, in like the Thanksgiving, Christmas time frame before everything else is blooming, because not too much else is blooming at that time of year. So we're gonna do this one. We're gonna kind of start a little bit more of this angle as we come. So we're gonna do there. And and then we'll have branches off of it and everything as we go. So that's going to be something that you will see as we go. Boop, boop, boop. So anyways, these are going to be our individual segments, and we're going to kind of bring this down, and then I'll have some branches off. But I want to do the flowers first and then kind of get a feel for how I like the look of it, and if there's anything else that I want to add. I'm definitely going to add some of like the little segments branching off as we go. The thing is always making sure that you're doing enough, but not too much, because there's a fine line between enough and then too much when we're talking about painting. So we got these guys. So there's a specific, what I love about brush painting is there's a very specific way to hold your brush. So you're supposed to hold it like this, because then I can have full control with my fingers. You're technically not supposed to be like putting your hand down on the paper. I tend to, depending on like what it is that I'm painting. This is gonna bother me, so I need to angle it down and out and pop it over the edge and have it not angle and bend. So we're gonna do here. What, Mo? I'm gonna do like a branch coming off of that way there. So I think I need to do another segment down for that one. So that little plaintive meow, that you cannot come up on my desk, I'm painting, you know better. You can sit in your basket and watch me paint, Mo. Yes, you, I love you, baby. But you're not jumping up here. Thank you. She just went, she's like, oh, fine, I'll walk away. So anyways, as we, the cats are not allowed while up on the desk while I'm painting, because I don't want them to get ink all over them, their little furry selves. Mochi has walked through the paint many a time. There's been where I haven't fully covered my ink, and then she's strolled through the ink. I don't even know if I'm actually going to use the ink at all for this one, but I have it prepped just in case. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the flowers, because then I can always add as needed. I can whoosh it into there for the flowers. So we're going to clean the brush, and this is going to be reds for the flowers. So we're going to go into that and see. And I'll do some like different branching and things off of there. So for the reds, we're going to go with a light red, and then we're going to dip the tip into the medium red. We're going to mix those together, blend together a little bit here on my palette, and then come right over there into some of that darker color. And then of course, soaking up the excess, because you don't want it to bleed on you for this. So that's one of the big parts, is soaking up the excess as we work. So now we are going to go ahead and paint our flowers. We get some of that excess off, need a little bit more of that. Go ahead and blend a little bit there. So this is I think I did my first ever brush painting way back in, let's see, we're gonna go with right here. So I think I did my first ever brush painting back in, oh gosh, we're gonna do the top petals, I think. We'll start with the bottom ones. So we're gonna go with, I want it to be big right here. Well, actually it was back in, I think 2014 is the first time I ever did brush painting. So I've been doing this for about 11 years. I did have a couple year hiatus where I did not do any brush painting, and that was while I was in Afghanistan for a year. Well, it was 9 months in Afghanistan, but same thing. So I didn't do any brush painting when I was in Afghanistan, and then I also did not do any brush painting when I was in, when I was on the aircraft carrier. I didn't do any brush painting on the carrier either. So those were the 2 times that I didn't do any brush painting. So that was like a few year period. And then from the carrier, I went back out to Hawaii. And in Hawaii, I actually did pick up brush painting again. So this is a little bit more of what we call an unsized paper, the paper that I'm working with right now. So it has a little bit more bleeding to it than what I would typically have with my standard paper that I utilize. So the paper that I really like doesn't have very much bleeding that you end up with. So this is gonna be the part of our flower. We're going with the bottom edge of the flower. I need to add more color. I'm not gonna add more. Normally I would rinse and do more water, but this paper is, like I said, it's what's called unsized, which means the paper doesn't have glue in it, so you get a lot more bleeding. The paper that I love to use, you get less bleeding than you would with it being mounted, because that actually adds like some of that makes it so it's the ink and the color sits on the canvas or on the here a little bit more. So one of the things with the brush painting, with the ones that I typically have used, it tends to be a little bit more, the paper I love in particular tends to be very much, it's what's called a double schwan. So basically schwan is rice paper. It's the Chinese word for rice paper. And with the rice paper that we use, it has there's sized and unsized schwan. Schwan just means rice paper. And what's really interesting about the paper, now I gotta make this go. Trying to talk and do this at the same time is a little tricky because I need this to be like a arced motion up around there for that one, for the top of this one. So the double schwan, basically it's two pieces. It's basically double thick. It's a little bit thicker than it should be. It's still unsized, so you still get really good blending of colors, but it's that double schwan versus a single schwan, which is going to be a little thinner like this, and we'll have more bleeding. But this paper actually is, like, you can tell, like if you were to look closely, you could see there's a little bit of a water ring, but the ink has stayed where I put it. So that's something that's a little bit more consistent with, that's something you see really well with the sizing. So even though this is unsized schwan, it's going to act a little bit more like a sized schwan as we do it. So let me go ahead and do this one right here. And then we're going to come right there. Do the big flowers, and then there we go. So this will look different in a minute because we are going to be adding some of the dark into here. So we're going to be using a lot of the dark for this. So let me rinse my brush because it's been a hot minute. And now let me get some of that excess water off of the brush. One of the biggest things in brush painting is learning your control, your water and moisture control. That's probably one of the most challenging things to master and learn, is how much is too much when we're talking our moisture. So we're going to get the dark, and I want that to be a little bit more dark. So I'm going to tap the tip into the ink to give it more of a burgundy-ish color. And then I always use the brush to wipe off the excess and to soak up the extra fluid. So we're going to do that. So it gives it more of that darkish tone, since I need to rejuvenate my paints. But I need this brush to be a little bit darker. So we're going to take, I basically just use the tissues to soak up that excess moisture. But then I need to make sure that I have that excess color that I need. And then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically create like a little line right here that I'm going to do, that's going to be like the top of the bell, because this is like a bell flower. So we want this line right here to be the top of it. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push from here up, which will kind of blend it into here. And it gives it that, like, that blends the colors up a little bit more. Well, it should on a little bit more of the absorbent paper. And you can see how we get a little bit of the water and the color kind of gliding up. But that's going to be that portion. And now we are going to have a very pale color to come out into our trumpet portion. Where do you think you're going, Carcass? You're not getting over here. But this is going to be just a little bit of pink, which basically, to get pink, you just do the light red and you just dilute it. That's really how you get pink, is you just dilute your light red. And then from here, we're going to come down a little bit here, and we're going to make our trumpet as we go. So that was a very bad line. I'm going to cover it with the petals, that'll help. And now I'm going to create like just a little bit of the second layer, because the flowers on the Christmas cactus tend to have like double layer to them. They have this really cool like double layered look. So now I'm going to make some of the petals here, and they're going to go right up to the edge. And these are going to be kind of like apple-y shaped. And we're only going to do like 3 of the petals on this one, maybe a little bit of an edge into a 4th petal. Or the 5th, but it's mostly going to be these 3. One of the challenging things, so I am standing as I paint this. It can be very tricky to paint the different angles that you need with the different hand positions. So to get it to look how you want it to be, that can be one of those challenging things to get. For this one, I don't even think it needs, and maybe I'll do this little guy right here, like part of one that we're seeing right there. I don't think I need one over on the other side. So now I'm going to go back to that pale pinkish red color, and we're going to do the rest of the trumpet up into the plant. So we actually turned it out pretty good, but I'm just going to go down just a little bit into the plant because I want it to give room for the calyx. So our calyx flowers, or like the calyx portion of the flower. So this is going to go right here and then right there. So you can see how it's continuing that trumpet. We're skinnier now. And then our calyx is going to be kind of that red-green combo with that dark red and the green for that. I just got to get the color that I want it to be, which is almost into a brown shade when we're talking about the calyxes. And then these tend to be, we're going to do this, and then I'm going to do a little bit of that one there and then right there. But I want that to be up a little bit. There we go. So there's our calyx, and we are done with the foundation of our first one. There's a lot more details that I still have to add into this. And I'm going to add some additional ones of here, but this is kind of like the initial look of what we're going to see. So now I'm going to do our second flower, for this one. So we're going to go into same thing. We're going to go, it's going to climb a little and look like a little bit of a different angle or a perspective that we're going to be seeing it from. Because that's one of the fun things, is to change up your perspective a little bit on how you're looking at everything. So if you guys have, like, as I'm doing this, if you guys have any kind of Christmas cactuses or Easter cactuses or Thanksgiving cactus all in this like same family, I'd love to hear about it, because they are such cool flowers and such cool plants. We're going to go with right here. And then we're going to do this one right there. So we've got that one. This one's going to be a little bit different because we're going to kind of come from there, and we're going to do the petal where it's kind of opening up like a little V, because we're going to be seeing this flower on more of a sideways perspective. This is kind of looking more top down on it, or like more with it in a normal, what you would think of perspective. And then this is going to be one that's a little bit more the side view of the flower that we're seeing with this one here. So we're going to do that. And then our next row up on that one. And what's really cool is seeing how different some of these colors can get on these cactuses. So I like to turn my body. It's really a lot of it comes down to turning your brush and angling it differently. That's what makes the biggest difference for these and gives you the perspective and look for it. So we're going to flip that one there. And then this one here, we're going to come from here, and then we're going to go down at it like that. And then we're going to angle a little bit there. And now we have to do the top aspect of this, which I'm only really going to do two big petals right above here. So we're going to do, because you can think of them kind of creating an arc. This one, I made it a little bit wider. I should have angled them a little bit more this way. But from here, we're going to go with, and this is something that you can do 2 to 3 with this right here. I'm going to do, and we're going to bring them back towards here, not to that little outside one. It's going to be back to here. So it's going to be kind of bringing that petal out. And I'm going to be bringing the bottom part in, so I'm not so worried about that. And then this one here. And then we've got the flower petal there as we go. And that's something that we're going to be filling in some of this with some of the darks, so I'm not so worried about that. So now I'm going to come into my dark, kind of more of a rouge red color But I want to add, like I said, a little bit of that ink to make it even darker for right there. And then from here, we're going to kind of come up into the crevices here as we go to kind of blend that color-wise. So that way you're kind of seeing a little bit of a different perspective there as we go. So you can see how you can get some of that bleeding in there. But that's going to be the basic flower for that one. Now I just have to add the secondary flower, which is going to be a little bit, just like I'm going to do like, again, that sideways perspective. So they're going to look a little bit different than the one that we just, like that area. They're going to be very similar to this for that secondary one. So we're going to go ahead and do here. Sometimes you like how your flower turned out, and then sometimes you're like, okay, that was bad. I don't like it at all. And I want to angle it a little bit so it can get to there. So we're going to come with that. So we're going with there, and then I'm going to come up from there, and it's going to be a matter of doing that little guy there, and then this one's going to come up there, and we're going to go with that sideways view right here, and we're going to go with that. So now I need the pale, that light reddish pink to go for our trumpet, and we'll go from there. So I hope you guys are enjoying seeing this. See, we're cruising. We're only at like we got 25 minutes to go. I'm making good progress on this. And we're going to add little buds once we finish our extra fronds. We're going to add little buds to this. So with it being a Christmas cactus, I want it to be as if like your pot is over here and you're seeing the branches, these branches coming down off of it. But where you don't have a really distinct, like this is where the base of it is. I want it to be that kind of a look or feel to it. So we're going to come with that there. And that there, coming down, and then we're going to go same thing from right here and right there, bringing it down. And now we're going to add in that calyx, which is going to be a combination of the green and the darker red tone for our calyx. Let me go ahead and do that, and we're going to do very similar to what we did before, where we have that, and then I have that one there. So that's going to be a little of our calyx kind of coming down, and then I will do a little of like that part coming up. All right, so now we have the basis of this done, and now I need to look at this. Now that the flowers are ready, they have to kind of dry a little bit before I can add some of the details in. But now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this and we're going to be like, okay, now what do I need to add to it? And what I mean by adding is going to be our branches for our little succulent off of this thing, because that's going to really help give it a little bit more depth and like look to it, is once we start adding a little bit of these branches for this. So like right here, I feel like it needs one coming off of right here, and they're going to kind of come from like, they can come off of like right here. We're going to do one right here, and we're going to add that guy in. And some of them you may only do one segment or lobe, and others you may do more than that. It's kind of one of those things that's super, super fun to decide how you do it. But anyways, like I said, Christmas cactus, something fun and different. But I was like trying to think of what I wanted to paint for you guys, and I went with Christmas cactus. So we're just going to do 2 fronds off of that one. And then I'm also going to come, I think like there's going to be other spots that I'll do onesies and twosies off of as well. It just really depends on where I want it, how I want it to look. So like right here, I think I want to do one that can kind of go off the page a little bit. So that would be like this one. You can see how it's like going off that page a little bit all the way to there, because that's one of the nice things is when you can have it where it moves off the paper. I will do one coming down this way, but I want to add for this guy first. But I need to clean my brush because I didn't like the blending of colors on that last one, which has to do with having too much paint and water in my brush. So now I'm going to come back into my light green. I didn't even use any dark green, so this is where I didn't know how many of the colors I was going to want. But I may actually add I'm going to do some like more shadowy, a couple shadowy petals, or like segments in here. So I will add some of those. Like right here, we're going to do this one right here as it comes around. And then I'm going to do another one here. And we're gonna add some like the little thorn type things to this. So we're gonna add those in a minute, but I just have to get the basis done first for that. So we've got that part kind of coming, and it's actually one where I kind of want it to be where this segment is going behind this guy a little bit, where you can see it's kind of like branching down, because I feel like that's kind of gives it a cool look when you look and it's actually like branching down a little bit from where we're seeing right there. And this will be close because I'm running out of green and I really didn't want to rejuvenate and do more, make more paint. So that's something that I'm going to have it as if you can say the line was coming like this. And you can say, okay, well, we're going to add a little frond here. And then you're going to add the other half of it on that side, and then there and there. And that's all I'm going to add for that one. So it's as if this is kind of coming down like that. So now I want to add one off of this side over here, which is a little bit of a different angle. And you never want it to be like, if I'm doing one here, I never want to do one there, because that's what we call a chicken foot, and chicken foot is no good. So I'll actually do it from like right here. I'm just going to do a single one from right there. And I think that will give it a nice little fill that spot a little bit. So we're going to go right there, and we're going to do this one. Boop. So there's our little guy there. So now we've got, like, that's enough right up there. I don't want it to be too busy. So now as I come down, I think I want to do one coming from like right here that's going to be darker. So I'm leaning towards, because I already did this one coming from right there. So I need to either do one from here that's a couple segments long, or from right here going that way. And I think I may do from this segment going that way just a touch. So that's what I'm going to do, which painting with the back of my hand like this is always awkward. Sometimes I'll switch and I'll paint with my left hand instead. But what I want to be able to do is add a couple little like petals or like little buds off of this. So I'm definitely going to do a bud there. This one, I don't know. I might do a bud like where you see part of a bud right here. So I'm thinking of doing that one. So I'm definitely do a bud here, do a bud here. I may add a bud right there as well. Maybe a bud there. So some of them you do and you don't add anything to, others you do and you do add those buds in. It just really depends on what the vibe is that I'm feeling as I'm doing the painting. So I may actually do, we're going to come from like right here, and I do want this one to kind of come down a little bit. So we're going to do that one there, and we're going to make that one 2 segments. I need to add, this means my brush is too dry right here, so I have to hold it in position longer to soak up more of the fluid into the paper, more of the water into the paper. All right, so there is those last ones, and we're going to do some buds now. So for our buds, those are going to be red, and then we have to leave just a little bit of room for the calyx. So it's basically, the buds are a little bit easier because they're just a couple strokes. So anyways, we are going to go ahead and mix our red, wipe off the excess. So my master, my teacher that I follow, it's like every time we do this, it's like soak, stroke, tap the body, dip the tip is what you're supposed to do whenever you hydrate your brush. So you kind of get used to, every time I like go to rehydrate my brush, I hear Mai's voice in my head saying soak, stroke, tap the body, dip the tip. So it's kind of one of those funny things. So now for this, we're going to do, we're going to start with this one right here, because he's coming off, and we're going to do this little guy like this right here. The buds don't have to be very big. They're just going to be like 2 strokes for those little buds. And then I'm going to do another one right here, right there. As you can see, I like to leave that little bit of the overlap for it. And then we're going to do a bud right up here at the top. And we're going to do that one there. And then, all right, so now I need to come in and do all of the other details for this. That's where we're at now. So we've got about 17 or so minutes to do the details, which is perfect. That gives us time for that. I'm like, oh, that was just like a car with really squeaky brakes that just like put on their brakes as they were going down. Oh, it's a UPS truck across the road. I'm like, what did I hear? That was like loud brakes. It was a UPS truck. All right, so this is where I'm going to go with more of that darker color here. Maybe a little bit of the green, and make it a lot darker than what I had done. And as you can see, I've gone down. This is the first time I'm using a different brush than what I had. So this is going to be a much smaller brush. And that's because for me personally, I know me. And that gives me a little bit more detailing. Oh yes, my Udi stuff arrived. That makes me super happy. So it gives me a little bit more of the detailing. And what we're gonna do is we have to make our little spikes on all of these. So they're gonna be like these things right here. And I want them to be dark in color. So I gotta make sure that I add them. And we've gotta make sure we get all sides of it. So some are gonna be darker than the others. And sometimes I like to just do the one side as we go. But these are our little thorny spikes. And then I'm gonna come in and do the other side. So I ordered an Udi blanket. They were still having like a late Black Friday December sale. So I ended up ordering an Udi, not an actual Udi because I have 3 Udis, so I don't need more. But I did order an Udi blanket, and I ordered a couple pairs of Udi socks because Natalie, Diet Coke and Diamond, swears by their Udi socks, and my feet have been freezing for weeks. So I really want to have some warm feet. So I'm looking forward to trying out their fuzzy socks because I definitely need them. So you can paint sitting down. You don't have to be standing up like I am. I find it easier to do these different angles and positions when I'm standing rather than having to do it when I'm sitting. And you also end up with better overall posture, and you get a better look, and you can see what you're looking at a little bit better when you are standing as we do this. But one of the challenges is I try to force myself not to go around angling my paper too much and just sticking with the direction that the paper is in as far as how I add things, which is good because it forces me to practice my skill set in like different angles and positions. But at the same time, it's trickier to do it this way. It's so much easier if I just turn the paper to match whatever angle I'm comfortable with painting in. But I try not to do that. I try to get myself where I can do those strokes in all those different directions. So here are going to be our little spiky thorns on our Cactus cactus. And then we will probably need to go in and add our dark segments. I want to add some dark segments into here. So we just got to keep adding color to here. So as we go. And this is the part where I usually don't talk as much because I'm focusing on the details as we go right through here. So I'm sorry if I'm not as talkative, but I will be down below in the chat as we're going. So that's not something I'm super worried about. I really wanted to try to make it so I could do it all like real voice as I'm painting it this year. Because in previous years, I've had to do like some voiceovers as I worked, and I'm trying not to do that this year. I'm trying to do it all just by like me talking as I'm painting it, which is a little harder to do for sure, because if I was just painting and not worried about what I was saying, that would go a whole lot quicker than, that would be a whole lot easier for me than to do it like this. But this way, it's a little bit more, I feel like it's a little bit more, feels a little bit more genuine if I'm talking to you guys as I'm doing this. So there's that segment, that lobe. For these spikes. So sometimes they can be really spiky, and these ones are a little bit more of like the dull ones, just because of the plan. How I've done them, they're a little bit more of those dull ones. So you can see how this right here, the detail work, like what I'm adding in right now, definitely adds to the image. It really adds and kind of brings things up a little bit. And I need to do my calyxes around the buds. That's what I also forgot. So let me do that. So we need our pink, and we'll do some green. And anytime I have like this too much red in my green pot, I'll end up just like mixing it, or I'll just like wipe it out, because it'll still be plenty of valid color in there. So again, the calyxes are going to be those little funky angle like that. There's one of our calyxes, and then we're going to do another one right here. So we're going to come down and go with that. And then that, it's always kind of like a funky 3 angle. So we're going to go with that one there. We're going to go there. And then that one's going to go there. And then we're going to go up. So And that's what just kind of like ties it all down. So when we're doing brush painting, we're not looking for it to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. What we're looking at with brush painting is to give you the idea of what you're seeing. So you have the idea that you're looking at a Christmas cactus. It's not like hyper realistic or anything like that. It's very much the idea. It's essentially you're trying to capture the essence or the spirit of whatever it is that you are painting. So that's really what we're going for with this. So now I need to come in and we're going to use a little bit of this. This is what's called bleed proof white. So I do need to clean out my little pots. We're mostly done with that. So I'm going to clean up all of this. I just usually end up squirting a little bit of water in there, and then I take whatever tissue. You can use paper towels to soak up the excess, but I like the consistency of a tissue better than the paper towel when it comes to cleaning it up. So now you can see how this is now cleaned up and I have that space to work with. So this brush right here, you never want to dip one of those actual brushes into your paint, into your white, because you want to keep it still a pristine white. So that's why I was so big about cleaning it, and I don't need a ton. So I'm just going to take like a little bit on here and I'm going to put it right there, because you want this to be undiluted white, because if I try to dilute this white, it is going to it'll be a little bit more opaque. Or a little bit less of it. It's going to basically, it will be a little bit more see-through. That opacity will change a little bit, because right now it's what's called bleed proof white, so you can't really see through it, and it's going to sit on top, which is what I want. So with this one, we are now going to come in and I'm going to be using this brush right here. I need another tissue to soak up water with. So I like to get all the excess water off, make sure it's in a nice fine point. And then I'm going to get the ink, the white paint, onto this brush. And you can see I'm kind of like loading it, mixing it around so it stays on there. But then at the same time, I am also trying to, because you want it to be fully in depth there and not like cakey, but then you want that like the tip to have a little bit more. And now this is where I'm going to draw some very fine lines. I'm going to soak up that excess. And we are going to do like our pistil and stamen. So there's going to be like 5 of them on each side right here. So actually I do want to mix a little bit of yellow with this. Give it kind of like a creamy yellow color actually. That'll help it, like where it's just slightly yellow. So it's not going to feel like it's solid white. It's very subtle when we do that. And essentially I'm going back to right here, because if you think we're going all right through here, in the words of my teacher, basically as if it's fish looking for the same food. So it's all going to veer back to this direction, whatever angle I do. I need to make sure that they all go back to that point right there. So as I do this, I'm going to go nice and controlled with this. And I want to make sure that my line stays. So you can see how I did that one there. And then I'm going to do another one that's a little bit shorter, that's going to cross over it. And I can already tell that I'm going to need a little bit more white on my brush to make sure it stands on top of that. And then we're going to do another longer one that's going to come from here down. And then I'm going to do another one kind of from here coming down. And then that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 4. So I'm going to do one more, which I'm going to start from here, and we're going to bring it down into there. So we've got that one was a little bit more curved than what I would like, but we already put it down, so there's no fixing it now. It is what it is. And again, this is where I need to get a little bit more of the yellow into my white and mix it so it's that creamy yellow color. And then from here, we are going to do our these guys. And the nice thing by putting the yellow in there, it means it's going to stand out even on this white portion of the paper. And this is where I'm going to do these at different angles. I'm sorry if I get my head in there. I'm trying to avoid it. But you can see this is the detail work and part of what really kind of adds that final oomph to the painting when you see that. And we're going to have one more that we're going to do in like that dark red. So now we finished this one. So now we need to come over and we're going to do the same thing down here on this little guy, which is still, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have those 5 fronds in there. Momo, you're not coming over here, baby. Mochi, no. No, put the paw off of my desk. No, get down. Thank you, baby. She's like, but Mom, you know I'm painting. There you go. Good girl. She knows that she can sit in her box and watch me while I paint, but she can't get on the desk at all while I'm painting. That's not allowed. All right, so we are still doing good. We got 5 minutes left. That's perfect because we're in the final countdown for it. I am going to have to like pull out my iPad and figure out what quote or what I want to write along the side and have that. So that's going to be something that I may do in speed up a little bit as we go, because that's going to be one of the final things. So we're going to do this guy here. So we're going to start there. Good. And now I'm going to do another one right here, kind of coming up and over it. And you always want it to kind of go towards that same center point is what I'm aiming for. And these ones, I'm having them all kind of angle a little bit, like a very similar direction, rather than having them in a too much of a different direction. And we're going to go with that right there. So now those ones ended up being a little bit fatter than the other ones, which is okay. It's just how they turned out. There's the white there, here, here. All right. So now we are going to add our deep red of the same thing. So it's going to be like a burgundy. We want that really deep reddish rouge color, which is kind of like this color for the final one. So that's going to be this dark red right here. And then I'm also going to pick up a little bit of the ink as well, because I want it to be dark. And with the ink, it's always a less is more. So that I dipped too much. So I need a little bit more of this. And you can see how I left most of it over there. And now I'm just grabbing this portion of it right here. So now I need to soak off the excess, because you do not want it to be, the ink is going to be a little bit more fluidy and a little bit more drippy, or a little bit more of that wet feel to it than what I want. So with the ink, and it tends to bleed a little bit more. So now we're going to do one long one, and you can leave these tips like they are on the flowers, or you can add like a little curly cue for them. I'm going to leave it as is, but we're going to do this one long one, which is going to come from further up. It's going to go behind that one, and you can see how it's going down. And then this one's going to have that little guy right there. So you can see how it went behind our other one there. And then we're going to do the same thing with this guy right in here. We're going to start right there with that, and then we're going to bring it down. And we're going to go down into there. So there is the final one, which I should have potentially given that one a little bit more of a curve. So now those are done, and I can come in and I'm going to figure out how I want to sign this. I'm probably going to just say, I'm probably for this one just going to have it be like Happy Holidays for this section. And I'm looking at this. You have to figure out where you want it. I can say Happy Holidays, but I think I don't have a lot of space. So I may end up just writing my signature on here, and then I have to decide where I want it. I'm not going to put it here because that would just be too much. So I may end up putting it right there, or even just writing it right along this inside here, because I really don't want to mess with the white space that I have there. So I'm thinking of doing it right through here. So I may say Happy Holidays and then my name and then stamp it. So I think that's what I'm going to do for that section. So this is where I'm going to have to do like a cut scene potentially, because I have to get my calligraphy that I need. In case you guys were wondering how I tend to go about doing my calligraphy, because one of the things that I would love to do is learn Mandarin, but I don't know Mandarin. There's certain characters that I can look at and I recognize them because I've painted them so often, so I kind of know them. But for this, I basically went to Google Translate and I put in Happy Holidays in Google Translate, and then I copy the Chinese, the Mandarin that it comes up with. I copy that. And then there's a specific website that I go to that I then can paste in the characters that I want. And then I put it how I want it, which I like vertical. And I like, see which one of these two I want. So this right here is what I'm going to be writing, is going to be these characters there. So I'm going to write those coming right down. And then I'm also going to write my name, which I haven't signed anything in a hot minute. So I'm like, oh gosh, how do I even sign my name? I haven't done it in forever, it feels like. So with this, I'm using straight ink, and I want to get it well into my brush. And then once it's in my brush, I need to come in and do the excess so it doesn't bleed. Because I really like to have like some semi-tacky, like older, where it's been sitting out exposed for a while. That's my preferred style with this. So I'm going to start right up here. All right, so for this part, I am doing a voiceover. I actually have this sped up into like double time as I sign. I tend to go slow, and I was having issues with like having the right amount of ink and everything on my brush. So I did end up going, having to like refill with more ink and hydrate a little bit more. But anyways, like I mentioned, I typically find the words that I want, or I basically say, okay, this is the phrase that I want.
I put it into Google Translate, get to the Mandarin, and then I take those characters over into this lovely website that I found that shows it in different styles of calligraphy. So that way I can see that more like cursive, basically. That's the equivalent of cursive is what I'm doing for those 4 characters. And then once I do that, then I have to sign my name. So right here, you can see I moved down into my signature, and then I was like, I need more hydration on the brush, which you got right there. I think in a perfect world, I would have made my font just slightly smaller. I think that would have worked out perfectly, but I didn't. Oh well, it's kind of one of those things where it's on the brush, it's on the canvas, it's done.
And now we have the stamp portion. We seal it. So this is my stamp. This is Ming, which is basically as similar as you can get to Mink as far as like the phonetic sounding for it. So this is going to be what we do, and this is some Cinnabar paste in case you're wondering what that is. That's what gives it that really red when you see the seals. The seals, I actually carved the seal myself. So with this, it's like I don't want to necessarily put it right here because it's going to come down into our flower. So I should have done my script much smaller. I really got carried away with the size. So it's a little bigger than what I would like to do normally. So I'm going to offset this because it's like if I put it there, it's going to kind of encroach down. So then I have to decide, where do I want it? Do I want to put it here? Do I want to put it there? Because I can't really put it there. That just looks off because it should go either to the right or underneath. So I'm going to put it right, well, actually, this is the part because it's like you want it to actually look right as you're working it. So we are going to put it right there. So you push down and voila, there we go. We have now sealed our painting, and that is what it looks like when it is done. I'm not so happy with this portion here, but I think everything else turned out pretty well. I'm pleased with how the rest of it turned out. So now I have a painting on, you know, a scroll. The nice thing about this is it's ready to be hung up. You can literally take it and be like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and hang it just like that, and you're good to go. That's the nice thing, is that it's right there on the scroll. You don't have to mount the paper, which is a pain in the butt. So usually if I'm painting something for somebody, I will do it on a scroll because then they don't have to try to like mount it or anything. And you don't want to like roll it when it's super wet or anything, but it's mostly in that dry point. But voila, there we go. There is our Christmas cactus completed, and it says Happy Holidays, and then Ming Indian, which is Grace. Because that's what I was always called growing up, was Grace. That was my nickname. And you can see there's no bleeding all the way through. It comes close at times, and that's because this paper is basically put right onto the purple paper that like the backing paper that this is glued onto. So now we're gonna go ahead and call that good. I hope you guys enjoyed joining me for a little brush painting today. And I hope you guys enjoy the next video that you get to watch for the premieres as we move on to the next one. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.